My initial motivation for using social media was my students, who were very keen for me to engage more broadly, not only with them but also with other related researchers. I use Facebook for sort of group communications, for usually people who have a specific interest or a project that they want to work on. I find Facebook very useful for that. I use LinkedIn again as a way of keeping in touch with former students from the program and to track their sort of professional development once they leave the university. I find that particularly useful for the professional side of things. I use Twitter fairly extensively in a number of different guises, and I find Twitter really useful for attracting a sort of a general sort of loose collection of people who are interested in the same sorts of things you're interested in. And I use ResearchGate, which is an academic, it's kind of like an academic social media network where you can actually put your publications and make them accessible to other researchers. I find that ResearchGate is particularly good because you can track the number of times articles have been cited by other people, and you can track the number of times articles have been downloaded and viewed and things like that. So it gives you a bit of an idea about how your sort of output is travelling. Which one of your sort of ideas or projects that you've reported on in the academic literature has sunk without a trace, and which one actually are being read by other people. And that's always useful to know, because that helps to sort of shape your own research practice in terms of the topics and issues you want to pursue. To give you a couple of examples, I've had a number of invitations to speak at conferences that would not have come about if not for the social media networks. And probably the most extraordinary one is a recent one where I was approached by a publisher to put in a book proposal. And again, that's something that would not have happened if I wasn't using social media. In the museum studies area, I find that the use of social media is quite widespread, and I find that it's usually it's a good way of connecting theory with practice, because you'll have researchers who are interested in the sort of theoretical concepts behind museums and museum-related issues, and social media allows them sort of more or less instantaneous communication with practitioners. So there's a good mix in the museum studies area of practitioners and theorists who are constantly communicating, which I think is good for the discipline, because theory should always inform practice, and practice should always be guided by theory. Personally, I don't think there is much in the way of risks or dangers, particularly if you're going to exercise common sense. I mean, obviously, if you're working on something that's top secret, and you sort of don't want people to know about it, you obviously don't say anything about it on social media. But if you want to sort of get an idea out quickly, as long as you're willing to sort of accept the fact that not all of your ideas are going to be readily accepted, and there are going to be people who will be critical of how you think. As long as you're willing to accept that, then there's no danger. I mean, the only danger really is the occasional bruising to one's ego if your sort of what you think are brilliant sort of insights aren't readily accepted as such. I think social media has had a very big impact on face-to-face networking, mainly because, particularly at conferences, nowadays many of the conferences that I go to in the museums area, people actually wear their name tags and their Twitter handle as well. And so you can sort of identify people when you meet them face to face as, oh, you're that person I've been communicating with on Twitter for however many years. and that's always very interesting. So I find that social media just gives you an extra platform to get to know people, and that makes the face-to-face networking so much more interesting. The other great thing about Twitter, which I like at conferences, is while you're sort of actually, it's so instantaneous that while you're actually listening to a talk, you can also monitor how people are reacting to that talk on Twitter, and there's always sort of a very interesting conversation around that usually. Okay, yeah, just as a last word, I guess, a matter of reiterating the previous comments. It's a matter of sort of rolling your sleeves up and having a go and seeing what happens, and also sort of not being disillusioned about it. Many people say that they don't have time to do social media. Well, I find that social media just sort of somehow gets integrated into your day, and it's always something that there is time for, interstitially between other tasks during the day. And it just becomes a sort of a habit, but it's a valuable habit if it's working in your benefit as a researcher. And the number of connections you can make and the number of interesting people and therefore interesting ideas that you can get hooked up with through social media is really quite amazing. And it's great fun too.